one of these cryptocurrencies. And we said that doesn't make sense. Like, this is an emerging asset class. You need to, if like, it's more important than ever actually to own a diversified portfolio. So that's what we offered. And we essentially said, let's put together a fund that allows, at that point in time, we're really focusing on wealthy individuals, but let's put together a fund that allows people to invest in a diversified portfolio of cryptocurrencies. And we realized quite quickly, and this is 2015, 2016, but we realized that actually I lied, it was 2017. So it was the start of 2017. And we realized that, at that point in time, you didn't have custodians that could custody these cryptocurrencies. So again, you're talking about getting millions of rands from people, and you don't have a professional custodian partner that is able to provide the surety that you require to be able to look after these. Most regulators kind of like laughed at us. They're like, you're talking about that funny internet money. No, we don't really care about that stuff. So it was just difficult. And I think more than anything, I was like, well, it's hilarious because you are actually able to set up these funds that high net worth individuals can invest in, but why can't everyday people want to invest in this? And I think that's really the big opportunity with crypto, because if you think back to 2017, this was the story around crypto. It was kind of like the everyday person able to take part in this investment class that had never happened before, right? You'd never had every single person around the world able to invest in the same asset. And that was what could happen then in 2017. So we were really fortunate where that failure of that other business, which was called Blocktree Capital, which is essentially trying to set up that fund, that gave us the opportunity, it gave me the opportunity really to sit back and go, okay, what's a bigger market and what's a bigger opportunity here? And that is to offer that exact same product just to a different target audience. And that's where the Revix idea came about. And also said, well, why stop at crypto? If I've got exposure for high net worth clients in the past to a variety of alternative assets and emerging sectors and all the rest, why can't we offer that to everyday people as well? And that was the idea around Revix, because Revix stands for Revolutionary Investment Experience. So, why can't you provide that experience to everyday people? And it's been 3.5 years. What a period. The last 3.5 years for me, I don't know how I'm not gray. I think the lighting that I have here is like really good, because it seems like even my skin's good and my skin's not good. But yeah, it's been a fantastic ride. I really enjoyed it.
And how did you go about then building a team? So you mentioned that you had a few people that you would speak to try like take it off the ground. How did you go about from, okay, this is the concept that you had, to actually getting people who are going to buy into your vision and your greater idea and actually want to help you work towards that?
It started really manually. I think, sitting there with an Excel document, the same as sort of managing a portfolio in the good old fashioned way. Let's do this manually. Let's hack it together, create that real MVP, the MVP that you would never be proud of. And then you try to pitch it to people. And the moment somebody buys it, you're like, oh my word, you're willing to give me money to do this? Okay, well, maybe we've got a solution here. And the more we did that, the more people wanted to get exposure to it. And it just became something where it was like, okay, no, we can actually do this. How do we automate this process? How do we do that? And that then led to us essentially creating what bundles are, cryptocurrency bundles. So if you invest in, say, our top 10 bundle, you're investing in the top 10 cryptocurrencies equally weighted. And then every single month, we automatically update that bundle for you. And all this is really is a program that says, listen, you must hold the top 10 cryptocurrencies. And it just automatically trades on your behalf. Now, this isn't some MTI saga where you can go and get sky high returns. No, the aim of these bundles is to track the market. So if the cryptocurrency market goes up, our goal is for you to be able to track that as closely as possible. But that's really what we built. So it wasn't rocket science, but it was essentially filling a need in the market for people to be like, well, listen, crypto seems complicated. I don't want to guess which one's going to become the next big success story. And where do I go to get this sort of exposure? And then we happen to fill that gap.
Okay. Just to remind everyone, if you have any questions, pop it in the Q&A as well as in the general chat section, whichever one suits you guys. So speaking on that, so it sounds like you had to do a lot of research on how to actually reach the actual market that you wanted with regards to selling to crypto. So I can imagine when you started, already people are quite hesitant towards it because of how volatile it is and how it doesn't have, it's not regulated as much as other assets. So how did you go about navigating that preconception that people had that, firstly, digital asset, what is that? And secondly, how do we trust that, our wallets aren't going to be hacked back in the early stages?
You earn trust, I think. So for us, it was a case of like, you need to get momentum with word of mouth. So you do right by your customers, they tell people, you get a little bit of momentum from that. You do have to do the hard work, right? I mean, of course, you got to do a lot of research. You have to understand how do you put together a system that maybe isn't scalable, but that you can go to sleep at night, and no matter, even if the best hacker in the world arrived there, how could you stop them from doing something? So that's the system that we put in place, which just meant that we started with a very manual system, and it required a lot of manual intervention and long hours. And then as the system evolved and as you were able to sort of hire more developers, put more layers of security on and all the rest, that just allowed us to, I guess, sleep a little bit more or sleep faster, or one of the two. And that was kind of the way we got started. And I suppose, another challenge, which I suppose a lot of founders do face, is raising capital. Like, at what point have you got product market fit? And I don't think there's ever a moment where you're like, oh, we have product market fit. I still sit here with Revix today. You've got tens of thousands of customers and you're still going like, do I have product market fit? Like, is this actually what it is? And then, yeah, I think it is just one of those things where you have to constantly be thinking of fundraising. Like, it's an oxygen tank on your back, and the oxygen tank is how much money you have. And the more people you hire, the quicker that oxygen goes down, right? And I mean, it was quite crazy this last 12 months, I suppose. I mean, we raised a fair amount of money earlier this year. And before then, I mean, a whole bunch of staff, offices, a lot of marketing being spent. And you're sitting there going like, I know that there isn't that much oxygen left in this tank. And if there's ever a time you want to be really stressed out, you get into that position. But it is also that which drives you. Like, it makes you find capital, but it also just makes you realize just how important it is to have networks and connections and conversations happening with VCs as well. So I kind of jumped the gun there and started getting into like the funding side of things. But I think that's probably because from all the entrepreneurs I've spoken to, the funding question is like the most common one. It's just like, how do we get funded? And South Africa, just FYI to everyone, in my opinion, I've been in the European market, I've been in the US market, I've been in the UK market. This is one of the most difficult markets. It's definitely more difficult than all of those to raise capital in.
That's crazy. So we have a question from Jack Tilbury. He's asking, can you explain the contract bundles?
Yes. So the smart contract bundle includes cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, EOS, Cardano, Tron. So what these cryptocurrencies are looking to do, I mean, I'm sure most of you that are listening have heard of Ethereum, right? So Ethereum, in Ethereum speak, is looking to become the world computer. Now, that doesn't really say much, but what these cryptocurrency protocols are looking to do is really create the blockchain infrastructure that allows other applications to be built on top of it. So if you want a decentralized, I mean, look at Compound, which exists out there. You want like a decentralized money market application, which means that you can borrow money from this protocol, you can lend money to the protocol. You have that exists on top of Ethereum. So that's what these smart contract oriented cryptocurrencies are looking to do, is to enable other applications to be built on top of the blockchains. So if you think about Bitcoin's sort of the V1 of cryptocurrencies. It's great for transferring value from me to you. It's not great for having greater functionality around that money. So if you think about how money is going to evolve over time, you probably want to be able to add some conditions to that money. So you can add a smart contract to something to be able to say, okay, great. Well, if I'm sending Ethereum to you, Anele, fantastic. I only want that to happen if something else has been completed. So let's just say, as an example, you make an order through Takealot and you make a payment. Instead of that payment going directly to Takealot, that can be held in a smart contract. And that means only when you receive that package and you open it and you say you're happy with that, will that payment be released? That seems like a lot more of an efficient sort of payment system. So that's just one very small smart contract application that could exist on top of Ethereum. Bitcoin doesn't have that functionality. I mean, that's one of, honestly, an infinite sort of set of different applications that can be built on top of the smart contract cryptocurrencies, but that's really what we're looking to offer in that bundle, and is the top 5 smart contract cryptocurrencies in our smart contract bundle.
Thank you. So back to fundraising. Okay, so you raised a lot of money just recently. So can you just, as you said, like a question that's on every entrepreneur's mind is funding. I need funding, but a lot of the times people don't actually need the funding. So can you just take us through that journey of from running your business to realizing that actually you need to get more funding, and how to make that decision of where you're going to allocate that funding that you're going to get. Because a lot of people want to pitch for funding, but they don't even know where they're going to allocate it to or how it's going to actually help grow their business.
Yeah, so I guess it depends what sort of business you have, because not everyone needs to raise funding. Like some people are able to, and when I say not everyone has to raise funding, so some people can start with a little bit of cash and you can sort of grow organically. With Revix, there's no way we could have grown organically. You have to put a lot of money up front to build a system, to build this digital platform that requires just a lot of developers to be working on this project. Some other businesses, hell, you can start by yourself, you get some traction, you then hire somebody else, and it just happens a lot more organically. So I think you've got to just really assess your business and sort of the structures. Do you require money up front or don't you? So that's the first thing. Then when you get to a point, whether that's early on or a little bit later on, that you need to raise funding, that's probably too late, because at that point when you realize that you need funding, like you realize that you probably have 3 to 6 months like lag time before you actually get money from anyone. So I think from the moment you start your business, you should be evaluating, or not evaluating really, you should be actually reaching out to your network and try and get introductions to people, because this is just something that's going to continue through your entire startup journey. And even if you don't need the money, it's still fantastic to get those connections. Best case scenario is you never have to raise money and you obviously just go sailing through to have this really successful business and you sell out. I don't know many stories like that, but that is something that can happen. The other side of it is that you get kind of introduced to this person. Maybe this person doesn't want to invest, but they'll introduce you to somebody else. And then you get these really great connectors who connect you with like 20 people. And all of a sudden you've got this network that opens up from nowhere. And remember, every single time an investor comes on board, if they're the right sort of investor, and this is, I guess, a really good bit of advice, is try to look for those active investors that want to get behind you and they believe in you. You can get a terrible investor on board, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, where you are having to provide management accounts every single month. They want updates on like a weekly basis, and you're spending like 10% of your time dealing with investors rather than dealing with the business, which is an absolute nightmare. You don't want to be in that position. But when you find the investors that support you, all of a sudden they connect you to other investors. They become like part of your company, and that makes life a lot easier. So with Revix, I was very fortunate where I essentially met some of these people that were able to kind of connect me to a whole bunch of different parties, really get behind the business. And without them, there's no way we would have been able to raise the money that we raised. So I think it is a case of really finding those people that are able to kind of, drive this mission with you and drive this vision. And there can be other employees within the business. There can be co-founders. I mean, they hide in weird and wonderful places, but that's my best advice, is to find other people that you can leverage and that they can obviously benefit as well in growing this thing.
And what would you say have been your key takes in the past 3 years, like the biggest lessons you've actually learned, and which lesson you'd want to make sure you impart to the audience today?
Number one, my biggest mistake, and there's a whole nother story which you're not going to get into here. If you start with a co-founder, make sure you have a founder's agreement. So make sure that you have something on paper that says, listen, if you leave, this is what happens. Just really good advice. Recommend doing that. Definitely do that. A second bit of advice is, I think, kind of building off what I just said now, don't wait until you need funding to look for funding. Be looking for funding. Be obsessed with funding. Businesses, most of the time, don't get destroyed or run off a cliff because the idea isn't good. It's generally they run out of cash. Like, honestly, I would say that's almost up to like 95% of businesses just fail because they run out of cash. And if you're able to avoid just that, I think you can really take something quite far. And that's, in my opinion, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's an easy thing to be cognizant of. So that would be the second most important thing. And then the third thing is, do not underestimate just how important talent is. Finding the right early employees will be something that will make or break your business. So, kind of adopt the mindset of hire slow, fire fast, and maybe hire very slow and then fire fast. That's like the only way I believe that you can really build a business, because what is a business? A bunch of really smart people with a collective ideology that, and a mission that they're going after.
Wow. Okay. So we're just going to get into a few questions before we go on. So Hassan Adams says, you're coming up with interesting investment solutions. Are you exploring the creation of a basket of the top 10 NFTs, as the space shows a lot of interesting potential?
Yes, we have looked at A basket of the top NFTs, so maybe the top NFT protocols, so the different tokens, with whether it be like Nifty Gateway, like the protocols that actually interact with NFTs. We have looked at that. It is interesting because the market isn't very developed, which means that it isn't too weird to see a 30 to 40% move with some of these tokens on a daily basis. And we just kind of owe it to our customers as well before we launch any of these products. I mean, we've looked at launching a DeFi bundle as well. And while they are really attractive and we know customers are asking about them, we just don't want to launch one of these products and it falls 30 to 40% in a short period of time. And we weren't prepared for that, or we didn't have the right sort of risk procedures in place to be able to deal with that. So we need to, as part of we're busy being regulated in the EU, and part of that regulation means that you actually have to disclose the risk profile to customers. Now, crypto is already top of that, and then you throw NFTs and DeFi and all the rest. I think it's going to take a little while for us.
Speaking of regulation, so how are you navigating all these regulations in different parts of the world? Because if I'm not mistaken, Iran and China are looking into banning crypto trading in public banks or firms. So how do you go about like actually just navigating that whole mess?
Yeah, you're right. You said it. It's a mess. It's not easy. It's really difficult. It's probably the most challenging part of my job, because the moment you think, okay, no, right, we on the right path here, then something changes. Look, we went through the registration process in the UK to become FCA compliant, to make sure that our onboarding processes were compliant with anti-money laundering directives and all the rest. That was a challenging sort of exercise. We managed to get that done. In South Africa, I was on Bloomberg 2 weeks ago talking about how the South African regulator has to step up, because, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that you've got other emerging markets, arguably far poorer than South Africa, that are coming out with crypto regulations, and we're just nowhere. I mean, we've been told for the last 3 years that you would have some sort of crypto regulations, and then you don't have it, and then you've got the likes of MPI, all these other big Ponzi schemes and scams that are going on, and that's because regulation's not there. Like, you need to have regulation. Like, come out and say that cryptocurrency firms need to act. As you can see, I'm quite passionate about how the regulator actually does need to step up here. But come out, say that we need to be registered with the Financial Services Board, or do something. Currently, we're just having to act like a regulated entity, and it makes life really difficult. I can tell you, no bank wants to deal with a firm that's not regulated, and no marketing agency as well wants to deal with a firm that's not regulated. So it makes our life living hell. I would love them to just introduce regulation as well. So it's been a challenge, a big, big challenge.
That's actually quite interesting, because like I'd expect, like, since it's not regulated, it's just, free play, do whatever you want. But now that you actually mention how banks don't want to work with, with sectors that aren't regulated, that actually makes a lot of sense. That's actually quite interesting.
Think about this, right? So, I mean, people don't really see the side of the crypto market, which is like the poor broker or the poor crypto exchange. And that's not what I'm getting at all. But if you look back 2 years with Revix, at that point in time, we had about 12 employees. 2 days before payday, the UK bank we were dealing with just decided they're freezing our account. They didn't let us know. They didn't do anything.
Crazy.
Froze the account. And now how are you supposed to pay these people? I was calling mom, dad. I was calling out investors at that point in time, being like, I can't miss this payday. Like, the employees will never, ever look at the business the same. You destroy trust. And that's the side of it. Because you're a crypto business, banking risk is a big risk. Definitely not a day I'll forget.
That sounds so scary. Especially now that there are people who actually depend on their salary from you. Like, there are other people's lives that you have to think about right now. Yeah, that is actually quite scary. So there's another question from Hassan again, who says, is Revix open to discussing and ideating collaboratively around investment solutions in line with what Revix is offering?
100%, definitely. You can pop me an email, Sean at Revix, SEAN@revix.com, and we can discuss that further. We are definitely always open to sort of discussing different investment opportunities and areas.
And then there's another question, again from Hassan, who says, how did you know you had a good idea, considering before you hit the market, there were solutions like Luno, DCX Capital's EC10 basket vying for crypto attention?
This may sound arrogant, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but go and message one of these platforms' customer support, right? Or start going into a bank, right? Go into a bank and just realize how terrible that customer support is and how little these people actually care about what they're doing. go to any of these other platforms, and not necessarily to knock either of those competitors, because they actually are really good platforms, but go message their customer support, and you immediately realize that there's a need in the market for a platform that actually cares, or that will get back to you in a reasonable period of time.
They
So there's
take
that
10
one.
days.
Exactly.
Yeah, Luna takes 10 days, yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. But the point being is, the point is that you can kind of sit there and be like, I know that if we just launched a platform that was going to be better with customer support, you would have a market right there. Then you go and you see when, the crypto market's super volatile and you want to trade, and then all of a sudden something doesn't work. And then you go, oh, but if you just fix that as well, then you've got like two really good use cases. And you sort of build a business just around that. And other things, I think competition is brilliant. Like, you have to have competition. If you're the first person in a space, and I've never ever been the first person in any sort of business that I've ever launched, but if you're the first company, like, there's probably a reason that you're the first company. So, I mean, my initial reaction when you see that is like, great, market validation. That's exactly what you want. So I see it more as a positive thing than a negative thing.
A question from Lucas Porter. He says, hi, Sean, thanks for your time. What is the average interest rate on the top 10 bundle, bear market versus bull market?
So there's no interest rate per se. There's the fluctuations in the crypto prices. So what that bundle is really doing is it's saying you are owning these top 10 cryptocurrencies. They're being reweighted on a monthly basis. And over the long term, you will essentially get a return that's comparable to the cryptocurrency market. Now, the top 10 bundle, if I'm not mistaken, over the last 12 months is up about 450%. And over the last 24 months is up about 1,500%. So it has been obviously a great investment, but that's because the crypto market has grown as much as it has. A lot of people think with our bundles, we are doing some magic in the background and picking cryptocurrencies and selling them. That's not what's happening at all. We are literally just giving you exposure to this asset class and hopefully doing it in the most cost-efficient way as possible.
Cool. Just a reminder again, if anyone has any questions, just drop them in the questions bar, questions section. So on the topic of crypto, so where do you see it heading in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see it being more heavily regulated in areas where there already are regulations, or do you see it just kind of staying the same? Do you think it's still the early stages still?
Oh, this is still definitely the early stages. The crazy thing is I do believe that Bitcoin is now mainstream. Like, when you've got Ray Dalio turning around saying that he's bought some Bitcoin, I mean, one of the richest men in the world, Elon Musk, tweeting about it every second day. Like, you don't get much more mainstream than that. I mean, I read Bloomberg every day, again, finance nerd, but to see a crypto overview in the first paragraph every single day, it still blows my mind. I'm like, my word, like, 6 years ago when I was talking about, or 7 years ago, when I was talking about how companies would buy Bitcoin, people were like, shush, like, they're not
like,
going
what
to.
Is that?
Yeah, that was that guy at the braai. That was the guy at the braai at the dinner table. And they're like, shut up about Bitcoin, please. I'm not saying I told you so, but I told you, I'm not just joking. But the idea around crypto, I think, is really powerful. And you're not going to see that go away anytime soon. There will be greater regulations. I mean, there's platforms like Revix, which are going to follow the law in South Africa. We are not going to go underground and start doing dodgy transactions and all the rest. There probably will be that side of the market. I mean, you don't have the current financial system working together with crypto. They are definitely against one another. Why? Because you've got a blockchain cryptocurrency-based system, which is peer-to-peer. It cuts out middlemen. It's a completely different system to the banks, which naturally have intermediaries involved and central authorities and all the rest. So I see this industry getting a lot bigger. I mean, the asset class now is worth about $1.5 trillion. I personally see Bitcoin getting bigger than gold. So you're looking at Bitcoin going over $10 trillion over the next 10 to 15 years. Why? Because you've got a younger group of investors that are now going to inherit over $30 trillion over the next 15 years, right? So you've got all these people which are going to get money that don't view gold in the same way that their parents did or their grandparents did. And I think that's going to change the investment allocation quite a fair amount in the market. Not to mention the fact that the future is going to be more digital, right? It is without a doubt going to be more digital. It's probably going to be, as much as we're fighting against globalization and all the rest, it's going to be more global. Like, the idea of having a currency that stands, like a money that you can walk to a store with, will probably become something like when you see a record, right? I mean, the idea of having money with kings and queens and animals' faces and all this weird stuff on seems like crazy just to say out loud. And I think in the future, I mean, the idea of digital money's arrived. It's getting bigger. It's going to be more of a thing. And I see crypto being a far bigger thing in the future than getting smaller over time. Let's put it that way.
And then, so like personally, like I'm for crypto, but my only concern is that, okay, it is crypto is the future, definitely, but there's a certain demographic of people who are going to get left behind with that trend, should I say? Same as like 4IR, there's a large group of people that's getting left behind because they haven't been given like the opportunity to learn about such. Do you see it becoming mainstream to the extent where, say, government institutions are actually actively educating people about it? Or do you just think the world's just going to move and whoever moves with it just kind of moves with it?
I don't think that there'll be any centralized directive towards crypto. I think at the end of the day, like when you look at the price of, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the other cryptocurrencies, you're looking at that price in terms of dollars, rands, pounds, and that means that the Bitcoin price or the cryptocurrency price has increased exponentially more than this dollar value, right? Because, you know, $1 is still $1. So you're either looking at the dollar declining substantially versus Bitcoin or Bitcoin increasing substantially. And I think naturally over time, you're just going to see that continue. That trend is very much there. Over the last 12 years, it's very obvious, bottom left to top right on a chart, where Bitcoin is just increasing in value relative to dollars. And I think that'll naturally happen over time. You don't go and print 18% of all the dollars in circulation in 12 months and not expect runaway inflation. Like, I think I'm of the opinion that you will see rather crazy sort of like 19 or late 1920 like inflation that'll emerge over the next few years. And of course, it's not a problem right now, but when you've got record levels of debt across the world, and now this is obviously going into, you know, monetary theory and all the rest, but like when that starts to happen, that's where crypto really shines. I mean, the pandemic kind of like breathed life into this asset class. But when you've got runaway inflation and everyday items becoming incredibly expensive in dollar terms, I think that's really a big opportunity where the likes of Bitcoin and Ethereum can grow a lot more.
So we have a question from Jack Tilbury who says, hi, Sean. Jack here from the Delta. Great to see Revix thriving. Are you guys thinking of a mobile app too? The web app has a great UI.
Yes, we have started with a mobile app. So we should have that out before the end of the year, I'm hoping. We did build a progressive web app, which was great and has served us really well. But there are limitations around progressive web apps. I'm not sure how technical the audience is, but yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time and money building this application that can work across devices. I believe that a browser-first approach makes a lot more sense because you don't have to worry about the operating system. But unfortunately, you are just limited, and with people wanting to, you know, have access to their portfolios 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, sort of building a mobile app is just the next step for Revix. So we've started with that, and like I said, hopefully before the end of the year.
Another question from Lebogang Khalati. Has or is Revix considered a bundle consisting of cryptos that issue staking rewards and passing the rewards as dividends to investors?
I like you already. Fantastic. So we are actually launching a staking product very soon, probably within the next 6 weeks. It's in testing at the moment. And we don't really want to call it staking because staking, like for most people, they're like, what on earth are you talking about? And part of our job really is to simplify things so that everyday people can understand what is going on. And earning dividends or interest, that's still very financial speak, right? You should have like a little piggy bank that gives you rewards. And that's essentially what we're looking to build. We're not going to call it a piggy bank. That's me just coming up with a random name now. But that's what we're working on. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Jack Tilbury says, I think the reward system on Revix is another selling point, great loyalty program. And then Hassan says, you'll be launching some thematic investment bundles. Will these be structured similar to the crypto bundles, or will they be structured as ETFs?
Yes, that's also a great question. So we can't launch ETFs, unfortunately, in those different bundles, but I think for our end user, they're going to seem very similar. It's like financial wizardry that's going on in the background. We're taking essentially ETFs from international markets and we're bringing them to local markets. So whether it be medical cannabis, 5G technology, renewable energy, artificial meat, there's just, I mean, there's even been a psychedelics ETF that was released recently, right? Which is crazy. And the thing is that with all these fast growing sectors, like people want to get exposure to them. I think I can say to yourself and Ella, or like anyone in the crowd, like when you want to invest in these areas, like how do you go about investing in artificial meat? You'll probably be like, maybe there's an ETF that I can do that. And there is, right? So we want to provide exposure to these ETFs. Over the long term, we would like to provide exposure to these different themes in the same way that we do with our bundles, where you directly own the underlying companies within each ETF instead of having to buy a fund. But unfortunately, the fractionalization of shares is just not there yet. It'll cost us an arm and a leg to essentially offer the bundle structure. And I mean, this is getting into, I guess, deep financial structuring, but it would cost us a lot of money to sort of launch exactly the same sort of product.
So another question from Hassan. He says, so the transfer of wealth for the next generation will be binary, so to speak, basically millennially digital.
Yes, I think you're going to see a lot of money move hands, literally, right, to a younger generation. And you have to look at how that generation likes to invest. If you look at the trend, you're not seeing younger people choose gold over Bitcoin. Like on average, they choose Bitcoin over gold. And as soon as you've established that store of value property and you've kind of taken away this weird demeanor, remember the internet used to be viewed as this really dodgy place, right? I mean, it still is dodgy in many respects, but like you don't view it as that really, right? And it's the same with Bitcoin. Like right now it's being demonized as being this energy hungry, polluting system that, drug dealers use. And in the future, I think that's going to be very different, right? When a central bank starts buying Bitcoin to hold on its balance sheet, maybe some people will be like, okay, maybe this is slightly different. I mean, you're already seeing that with older generations and how they're sort of coming around and going, okay, well, like the pennies drop for blockchain. And if crypto is not a big thing, I mean, God, blockchain is going to be, it's going to be as big as the internet. And I think a lot of people still go like, what are you talking about when you say blockchain? Like, what does that actually mean? Like, why is it such a big thing? And it's exactly the same argument as when you think back to the early days of the internet. You're like, you can't imagine email and living your life through email or having these sort of conversations virtually. Like you didn't think of that, right? And now when you think about a decentralized future where it's like, okay, money could be smart, right? Imagine me making a payment to you, or let's put it this way, a government, let's like strike home a little bit more here, a government making a payment for a tender, and you know exactly where that tender money goes because you're able to track the money, like perfectly track the money because it's digital. Like that's what comes with smart money. And the future is just going to have all these weird sort of permutations, which improves the system. And I think that's what really gets me excited. And blockchain is sort of the foundation for all of that. Land registries currently get held in a central land registry, not even a location, but a central land registry server. And it doesn't matter how much security you put around that, that can still be hacked or that can be altered. You should have a blockchain structure there in place to prevent any sort of changes to that system. And you can just think about everything else across the board, health records, like that's your data. You should be able to hold that. You should be able to share that. And the blockchain is the backbone for all of that.
So our last question from Hassan. If anyone has any questions, this is the last call. Hassan says, with Revix, you get exposure to crypto via bundles, basically owning bundle units. Does this mean you own portions of the crypto as per platform like Luna or not exactly?
You do. You actually own each of the cryptocurrencies within your bundle, which makes it quite unique. So if you buy our top 10 bundle, as I said, you actually buy a little bit of Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP, ETH, you name it, which is quite unique and quite cool. It means that, they always say like, not your keys, not your crypto. So if you wanted your keys with us, you could potentially ask us for that. We just think for 99% of people, it doesn't really make sense for you to get access to your private keys, because I don't know how many times you lose your keys, like your physical car keys, but I lose them like 3 times a day. So I think, my private key for my cryptocurrency should probably be kept with a professional custodian, which is what we use, rather than, me looking after it myself.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'm assuming there are no other questions. Okay, another question from Jack Tilbury. He says, are you part of the Ripple bullish crowd? I've got faith there.
There's a podcast that I was on like 2 years ago talking about XRP, and no, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Really, guys?
I can't advocate for this cryptocurrency. I can't provide financial advice, but when you can increase the supply sort of whenever you feel like it, I feel like there's a bit of an issue around that. And again, look, I say that as well. I'm not exactly like a XRP fundi or savant here. I followed the protocol back in the day. I think they've done some incredible things. I just did not particularly like the way that you can alter the supply in the way that they did in the past.
Okay, a question from Hassan again. He says the energy intensive nature of crypto is putting pressure on long-term viability in its current guise via themes such as ESG. Are solutions such as cloud coin viable alternatives?
I don't know too much about cloud coin, but there's different. So what is energy intensive about cryptocurrency? It's the mining. So either you move to greener ways of mining, so using hydropower, various other means of renewable energy. They've even looked at using methane gas from drilling sites, and that's oil drilling, to power crypto mining, and that could be an interesting solution. Another option is what Ethereum is going through, which is moving to a proof of stake protocol rather than a proof of work, which means instead of using computational power and having really expensive computers trying to solve mathematical problems, you can essentially just stake some of your Ethereum to say, listen, I will put down a lot of money to say that this is a valid transaction. And by the simple fact that I'm putting down a lot of money, that if I validate a wrong transaction, you can take it all away. I'm incentivized to verify the network correctly. And that's very energy efficient, right? And I think you'll probably see a big move towards proof of stake over the longer term, or maybe even a combination of proof of stake and proof of work. But I mean, again, there's this huge debate at the moment around the type of electricity that's used for Bitcoin mining. I actually can't tell you the truth. I mean, I've read articles that say that 70% of Bitcoin's network utilizes renewable energy. I don't believe that's true. It's probably closer to like 15 to 20%. But would that energy be used for something else if it wasn't crypto? Probably. So, I mean, I don't know. You sort of have to just weigh up the pros and cons. Does having a decentralized, non-sovereign currency that can appreciate over a very long period of time and act as the ultimate store of wealth mean that, or is that worth actually utilizing that electricity? I mean, of course, I'm a Bitcoin bull. I'm going to say yes. So that's my take on this.
Quick question from Hassan. He says, does ADA have finite supply as per Bitcoin?
Cardano, I am actually not sure, if I'm completely honest with you. I don't think it does, because it follows a very similar structure to Ethereum. So I think it becomes deflationary after a period of time, but I would be lying if I had to tell you about the fixed supply.
Okay, yeah, so, okay, Hassan and Jack are having a convo in Q&A regarding, regarding it being green. Does anyone have any last questions before we close up? So I will be playing a video from our event sponsor, and then afterwards, if you're keen to join in the breakout rooms, I will be, dividing everyone up. But in the meantime, I'll just play a video from our sponsor.
South Africans love